All right, I want to welcome everybody into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. This is the first podcast of 2026, so welcome in. Thank you all for joining me. And look at this podcast in particular, this one episode, I feel it's been a long time coming when I'm looking at my own physical practices and weightlifting and fitness, because it's always been a huge part of my life. But lately, I have been working to deeply integrate a concept that I've been thinking about for a long time. And from it, we have the creation of iron and ether, forge the body, awaken the spirit. And I'm going to dive into what that is and why it's come about and uh, what that process has looked like. But ultimately, my intention with this podcast, it's not to sell you on any fitness ideas or fitness plans or uh, even get you working out, excuse me, in one particular way. My interest in doing this podcast is to plant a seed of reflection, so that you can engage in a process of transformation through physical movement and through physical practices, and something as simple as weightlifting or whatever your modality is, calisthenics, gymnastics, swimming, dance. Movement is movement. Our body is a temple, it is sacred. And whatever practice that you engage in to move the body and feel a connection with your spirit, I want you to honor it. I want you to follow the call that your body is leading you towards, because when you are deeply grounded in a physical practice, it allows you to connect with your spirit on a much deeper level, right? And I want to start the podcast with a question. And it's a question I've been asking many times over the last several years. And um, the first time I ever asked it was actually to my friend Jess, and she was a personal trainer when I was working at the gym in Montana. And I asked her, how do you integrate spirit into fitness? How do you integrate spirit into fitness? And you can take a broader lens if you want. How do you integrate spirit into movement? But I want you to sit with that. How do we integrate spirit into fitness? And I'm going to give you my own definition on that, or how I've come to express an answer to that question. And the expression is through iron and ether. This is what the expression has led to, the creation of that. And I'm going to explain again what that is. But um, I really want you to honor that question and take it as something that maybe you don't need to have the full answer to right now. But next time that you go into a movement practice, maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're walking on the treadmill or something. If awesome, if so awesome, like cool. I know some people listen to podcasts while they're working out or they're moving or on a run or whatever it may be, right? How do you integrate spirit into fitness? How do you integrate it into that movement practice? How do you honor the calls of your body? And maybe it is as simple as showing up, right? But even in our fitness practices or our movement practices, we have a tendency to build routine. And through routine, if we're not consistently listening to the calls, in this case of our body, we are going to stagnate. We are going to create imbalances. We might have injuries, right? Uh, and so one of my goals, and I'll be soon recertified for personal training, one of my goals in movement, and for myself first, this is something that I have been working to integrate for myself, right? So I'm not just speaking from a logical scientific analysis lens, right? I'm speaking more experientially first, and then integrating many of the core scientific um, backings in fitness and exercise science, right? So I can refer back to those things, and I think they're a good foundation to have. However, I think the call of one's own spirit and a connection with one's own body is the most important thing you can have when starting any sort of movement practice and fitness practice. And, this is coming out right around New Year's. If you're listening right around New Year's, we all know that there's almost a meme around New Year's resolutions and going to the gym. Uh, why do people not last? Right? I think the people who show up consistently, they forge a deep connection with their body and feel a grounding through a fitness practice. Right? And once you get to that grounding, it's the same sense of like a spiritual practice, right? Before you can really ascend and achieve a sense of enlightenment, you have to be grounded within your body first. It starts at the root chakra, and you work your way up. I mean, there's so many people, I guess, in the spiritual community who try to skip the grounding and go right to the ascension, but then they just, a lot of times they end up delusional. That's the mystic swims in the same water that the psychotic tends to drown in. But when it comes to fitness, it's the same concept, right? If I were to look at it from an exercise science lens, right, there's 5 phases in an exercise program, and it starts with stabilization of the body, right? You have to ground into your body. You have to stabilize yourself. You have to stabilize your muscles. You have to create a sense of equilibrium and balance within yourself, right? And so you're just starting out, and if you're looking to integrate spirit, it's about feeling a sense of balance and bringing a sense of balance to your movement. So that's just something to think about and think upon, and integrating variety within your own physical practice. We're already diving into some of the key concepts here. I want to just give a little bit of a brief introduction. I'm gonna talk about what iron and ether is, and sort of what we're doing here with the fifth dimension and the creation of iron and ether. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, right? And I have a whole outline for the podcast to talk about a lot of these concepts, right? So let me take a step back. Let me take a step back. I'm getting too excited to answer that question because it's a question I'm passionate about. It's a question I'm very passionate about. And that question is what created lifelong bonds for me. Obviously, Jess and I were one of the closest connections I've ever had in my life. And, unfortunately, she is no longer with us, but I still feel called to honor the conversations her and I had through showing up in my own physical practices and honoring, like, because she's the first person I ever talked to that took that question seriously and ran with it. And she created her own fitness brand through that. I remember there was and it was, her and I weren't chatting for a little, we had a little bit of falling out for a minute. And I remember she created it was like Aurora Fitness or like lights, I don't remember what it was. It had to do with her middle name. But I remember on the Instagram page, it had I think it had in the bio, bringing spirit into fitness. And I remember sitting back and seeing that, and I'm like, oh, yes, let's go. I'm so glad you're running with it. And that asking that question made an impact. You know what I mean? And I also want to give a shout out to my brother, Jake Lynch. He's been on the podcast a couple times. I've got to have him back on. He's been on as a guest with Sean Hibbler. And then oh gosh, he was just on. Who the heck was he on with? I can't believe I'm blanking on. We just did this podcast. Come on, I can't believe I'm blanking on it. Well, I guess it's a new year, and I said I was leaving all of 25 behind me and the past behind me, so that's why I'm not thinking of the name necessarily. But Jake's been on the podcast a couple times. Shout out to Jake. I don't know if you're tuning in or if you're listening to this, but I love you, brother. And he's another person who has really, through our conversations, we've been able to not just unpack this on an intellectual level, but show up in our movement practices and show up for ourselves and the people around us by integrating spirit into fitness and into movement. So, yeah, if you're a fan of the show, let's just get the little ad lib out of the way, I guess. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you're on. I do appreciate you guys subscribing. You can always click the link. You can donate, whether it's PayPal, set up one of those buy me a coffee links. I'm like, that's easy. Might as well set that up. And you can also go to Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. Subscribe there. There is a paid subscription option. Now, with Iron and Ether, one of the things that we're going to be doing, I'm going to talk about again what Iron and Ether is, but as I said, it almost recertified for fitness, um, personal training. So if you would like to book a one-on-one fitness oriented consultation based on what we're going to be talking about in this podcast, right? So say if this is a goal or a resolution, or you want to deepen your fitness practice, this could be something that is in alignment with you, right? And what the consultation would be is to assess where you're at fitness wise, to really look into your goals, look at your current practices, look at your blockages, and take a spiritually rooted approach to design a fitness program. Now, I mean, if your primary movement is like dance, then I don't know if I can design you a dance program. I'm happy to sit down with you and have the same conversation. Now, I don't know if I can write a dance routine for you. But so really it is more of a weightlifting, uh, strength training type of program, ideally. But hey, I'm willing to still have the conversations with you. Iron and Ether doesn't have to be all weightlifting, even though that is my background personally. But you can book a fitness consultation with me one-on-one, and I'm excited to see where Iron and Ether goes, because I designed it not just as somebody asked me, I launched the logo and everything on Instagram, and one of my homies asked me, it's like, so did you start a fitness brand? And initially I was like, I guess sort of. It's not just a fitness brand, it's more of a concept. It's more of a principle, if you will. And I'm going to dive into what the principles are. I'm going to touch on iron, I'm going to touch on ether. Forge the body, awaken the spirit, right? And just by hearing that, and if you're regular listener to the show, you could probably understand what I'm talking about by that. But we won't go too deep down that rabbit hole yet. I got a couple other announcements to make. So um, if you're interested in a fitness consultation, the consultation can be purchased on Gumroad, and I got that in the episode show notes below. And I haven't launched any yet, but I will be selling as well training programs. So where we don't even have a consultation, but you buy just a program. And they're going to be very specific. They're going to be very detail oriented based on what a specific goal is, right? If any of you guys are familiar with Alexander Cortez, he's a fitness trainer, very well known online. I've run through a lot of his programs and I gain inspiration from them. So, and I actually think he does a very good job of integrating spirit into fitness, even though he doesn't like outwardly say that. I can tell he's a deeply spiritually rooted guy, even though he doesn't really make that his selling point. And so a lot of the programs, I gained some inspiration from him on how I want to approach that. So it would be a spiritually rooted program. And we'll have it all, whether it's a powerlifting type of program, hypertrophy, you're looking to build strength, you're looking to cut, tone, whatever, you name it. There's going to be a program for each one, cardiovascular based or muscular endurance, aesthetic based. Look, I have nothing wrong with aesthetic training. Actually, that's something I'm going to dive into in this podcast. It's aesthetic. A lot of people think aesthetic based training is shallow, or if you're just going for looks. Now, if you look good, you're going to feel good. And if you feel good, you're going to look good. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I don't think it's too shallow to really want to look good. I'm going to the gym. So there'll be aesthetic based programs as well. I think you got to look at the totality here. And if you feel good about yourself, you're going to be able to connect with yourself on a deeper level. None of these programs, and I guess in the fitness industry, there can be a tendency to get a huge ego and view yourself as superior to everybody else. But these programs and what I'm doing with Iron and Ether, what we're going to talk about in this podcast, is it's much deeper than competition or having a superiority or God complex over everybody else. I think main character energy and having a God complex is not a terrible thing. However, I believe you should have a lot of self-confidence, especially if you're showing up for yourself and you're putting in work. You're starting to look good and you're starting to feel good. You should feel good about yourself. There's nothing wrong with throwing up a gym pic or a video of you lifting, or if you put a flex out there. I don't see anything wrong with that. I've done a little bit of that recently on TikTok, but now I discovered you put one or two videos into TikTok, there's this little thing auto cut and it'll create this little montage. I'm like, this is sick. It's cool. So I've started myself putting fitness content out there, and it's because, to kind of get you guys to see that it's easy to highlight the results, I would say, but to show you that the practices that I'm doing, they're working. Right. That's why I'm starting to put fitness content out there, and why I almost need to be a little bit like, hey, this is what I've been doing. It's working. It's working. If you find something that's working and can change the lives of other people in a positive way, who gives a shit if somebody thinks if you got a big ego because you're showing off or whatever it is, right? Anybody who knows you on a deeper level knows that's not what it's about. And people's resentments or judgments that they might have on that, it's because they're insecure about themselves or they want what you have. So don't hold back on putting your fitness content out there. Don't hold back on that. So, and that's what I've had that realization lately. So I think maybe after I'm done with this episode, I'll go put up a little fitness montage or something, just because I'm trying to speak what I'm, and not just speak it and not do it. I live by what I say, and the things that I'm talking about and the concepts I'm talking about, I live these concepts, right? So I'm not just talking out of my ass on this podcast. The proof is in the pudding. That's basically what I'm saying. So if you're interested in a fitness consultation and you would get a customized workout program based on what we talk about, get it to you within a couple of days after the consultation. Obviously, I'm not going to write it up. So it's sitting there, it takes time, it takes effort. I would have to sit down and look at what we talked about, right? And if you want to pull tarot while we're on that consultation, we certainly can. If you want to have deeper questions, uh, haven't necessarily thought about that, but I guess we can. But yeah, so Iron and Ether, check out the fitness consultation. There will be training programs available soon. And if you're in the local area and you want to work with me one-on-one in a fitness setting, we can do a consultation. Just let me know. We got a space. I think if you're watching on YouTube, you notice we got a new space here. We are in a new podcast studio based in Sacred Vibes. Doors are open, baby. We're making this happen. And it feels good to have a home for the fifth dimension. That's not just in whatever extra space I could find in my own house. You know what I mean? It feels good. So shout out to my brother Tony for holding it down in that way and creating this beautiful, beautiful space. We're going to be offering so many beautiful services here. I just did a tarot reading for somebody today and it went beautifully. We're going to be having workshops, classes. There will be some, I guess will be some merchandise for sale, but it's not really about the merchandise. It's about this being a spiritual sanctuary more than anything else. So if you're in the local area, stop by. Stop by Sacred Vibes. There's somebody here, and just walk on in. If not, send either myself or Tony a message and say, hey, I want to check it out. I want to maybe book something with you guys, whether that's tarot reading or fitness consultation with me. Tony himself does many services and readings and sound healing. So there's a lot that you can get by coming into Sacred Vibes. So, and it's still coming together in beautiful ways, right? It's not even fully put together yet. Like there's more shelves to be put up. There's more products to be brought in. There's all these ways that it'll come together. But the fact that I'm sitting here doing a podcast in it, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Maybe I'll leave you guys with a little singing bowl at the end of this episode. So stay tuned. I'll play you guys a little singing bowl and you can really sit with that question again. How do we bring spirit into fitness? That's a good idea. I think I'm going to do that. But also, you can book a one-on-one tarot reading with me as well. The link to do that is there's another Gumroad site. I got two Gumroad websites. one for fitness-based, iron and ether, and one for personal tarot readings. So I got the iron over here and I got ether services over here. In a way, right? So there's a split, but I wanted to give each of those their own home because they aren't exactly the same thing, right? Obviously. So the tarot will have its own website and Iron and Ether has its own website. And you can still buy my poetry book. Shout out to Whitney on TikTok who just bought my poetry book on the TikTok shop. I'll be sending that out to you in the next day or two. I do got it signed, and I just got to print the shipping label and get it on out. So thank you, Whitney. And yeah, it's cool to make so many connections all over the world, man. It really is. As I'm putting content out there, meeting new people, it's like it just goes to show me. If you're listening to this, you're one of these type of people, by the way. Thank you. I might not know you personally, but you're sitting here listening to me. And hey, that makes you a friend. I guess unless you're sending visceral energy and trying to like dim my light, then maybe not. But if you're sitting here listening and resonating with the ideas, hey, I consider you a friend. Thank you for being here. It's a beautiful, it's a pleasure to be connected. I'd shake your hand right now, but I guess we'll have to do it virtually. So thank you for being here. You can purchase the poetry book. And if you want to donate, there is a PayPal available. And I also just set up the buy me a coffee. So that's a way to financially contribute to the fifth dimension. And there's merchandise. I got so much stuff going on right now that I gotta just announce. And because a lot of this is so new, I feel like I have to put time and energy into announcing it. Once it's been announced, then I probably just mention it off the cuff. But I almost need to get a list going of all the stuff that I need to mention. That hey, we got this. Hey, we got this. Hey, we got this. There is merchandise for the fifth dimension available, and also iron and ether merchandise that kind of encapsulates what this is all about. So you head on over to the fifthforge.com. That's what I called it. The Fifth Forge. And it was my way of combining iron and ether with the fifth dimension. And we'll also have Sacred Vibes merchandise on there as well once we get that created. So Sacred Vibes is the home of the fifth dimension. Believe that? Beautiful. But anyways, again, I've kind of already explained why we're doing this podcast. We're looking at what is the way in which we integrate spirit into fitness. And I think it's important to define what spirit is. And really, Carl Jung would explain it as the anima. It is the life force energy behind all that is, right? It is all encompassing, all being, all around us. They're at the root of all of it. All right. So how do we bring that into a fitness practice consciously? How do we consciously bring that into a fitness practice? And so I think we really need to begin to reflect on a personal level what happens when training the body becomes a spiritual practice. What are the benefits of that? Not just on an individual level, but a collective level. I mean, can you imagine if when everybody sets a New Year's resolution, it's not just I need to lose 50 pounds, but it becomes a deeply rooted spiritual practice that can become a foundation for how you live your life. That's what it's all about. And, within fitness communities, a lot of times we talk about discipline. And I would argue a true fitness practice, you need just discipline, you need devotion. There's a big difference between discipline and devotion. And devotion is very holy. It's very spiritually charged. It's very much rooted in, I would say, esoteric traditions. Devotion. You have a devotion to something, and you're not putting that devotion into the weight room itself or into the movement itself. You're putting a devotion into showing up for yourself and crafting a better version of who you are. That's what this is all about. That's what it means to bring spirit into fitness. I think in a lot of ways, fitness has been, and part of the problem with this is from the mainstream science and exercise science communities and biohacking. And, there's a lot of BS in the fitness community that has turned it into vanity or dopamine or just strictly performance. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to perform at an optimal level. In fact, I think it's quite important. I want to perform my day-to-day life as optimally as possible, and I want to be healthy, and I want to be strong, and I want to be able to use my strength when I need to, and I want to feel good about myself. All right, I gain a lot of confidence from going to the gym and knowing that I look pretty damn good, right? So there's nothing wrong with the performance aspect or recognizing that you are in fact getting a dopamine rush from fitness, right? Um, and then I think in the same way, spirituality is often uh, something abstract and outside of ourselves, and we feel like we can only access it when we're deep in meditations or we're doing um, esoteric spiritual practices, right? And there's almost a level of dissociation that comes between us being grounded and then our spiritual reality. It's like we view it as something separate from the physical material world. And so what I'm trying to do with iron and ether is actually combine those. Iron and ether exists to reunite what was never meant to be separated. That is the body and the spirit, right? And I think you need to have a conscious connection with both in order to have that proper integration process take place. So I kind of want to take the concept and ground the philosophy of iron and ether a little bit and talk about it through my own lived experience here. I mean, physical training was the first thing I ever did for myself. When we look at it point blank, shout out to my homies in high school who dragged me into the weight room senior year and showed me the ropes. And they took a bro science model. I don't know if you know what bro science is, but go look up bro science life on YouTube. Go watch one video from the great teacher Don Mazzetti, and you'll see where my fitness foundation came from. It's very yeah, it's interesting because on a surface level, it's very shallow. It's very ego. It's very, very everything that is wrong with the bro fitness culture. Yet there is some wisdom rooted in it. He did Teacher Dom does drop a few gems here and there. But that's just to tell you that's where I learned about fitness. That's where I learned about weight. So I've been in the ego spectrum. I've been all about building big muscles and trying to get a six pack and trying to pick up chicks. Like that was my early foundation. And that's all right. And I catch myself sometimes having to fight the temptation of using it in that way and framing it in that mindset. I still catch myself, right? I still do train for aesthetics, and but I've realized it's because it's not like I'm not trying to seek something outside of myself anymore in doing that. It's for an internal um, resonance in magnetism. Because if I can feel good about how I look, it makes me more magnetic on an energetic level, right? So I think the bro science model in fitness and the egocentric model of just going in to get yoked and pick up women or dudes or whatever floats your boat, or if you're a chick and you're taking on this model again, and that very much exists. It might even, I'm not going to say it's more prevalent in women in the gym, but it's just as equally prevalent where they go in and they try and build a booty and they try and do that, right? That's a very common phenomenon in the gym. There's a lot of people who do this, and I understand it. And I think maybe it's not even as common as people think, but a lot of times we're going to make the assumption that's what people are doing when they're training aesthetics. Because I've been told that's what I do, and I'm like, well, I know I've done that in the past. That's not what I'm doing now, right? So anytime you look good, people who are insecure about their own looks, they're going to cast the cloud of calling you egocentric and all of these things onto you, right? And I think I already said that. If people say you got a big ego, or they say you're arrogant, but really you're just confident and you feel good about yourself, don't dim your light because other people can't handle your new sense of confidence or your magnetism, right? You should want to turn eyeballs when you walk into a room. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that as of having that as a conscious goal, in my opinion. I really don't think there is anything that is too absurd about that. I really don't. Because if you're taking care of yourself and you're projecting out an image of beauty, beauty is awe-inspiring. Beauty is awe-inspiring as long as you're grounding that beauty in a deeply rooted knowing of who you are, and you're not placing yourself on a pedestal above others because you view yourself as superior. There's a huge difference in how you frame these things. It doesn't matter what other people are going to say about it, or, it's about you grounding into your spiritual practice and grounding into a deeper level of self-worth and self-confidence that allows you to be magnetic, but also allows you to keep an open heart and inspire others instead of shame others who are not on your level. That's the big difference. That's the big difference. Okay. So for me, fitness, kind of bring it back to what I was talking about, went on a little bit of a tangent there. Fitness was my initial coming into my body. Now, I had the bro science mentality for a little bit, but it was what grounded me, and it was what gave me a sense of confidence, and it was the first thing that I ever did for myself. And I think anytime we start showing up for ourselves, if we've never done so before, of course it's not going to be this deeply rooted spiritual awakening practice. Like, all right, you're going to the gym, you're showing up for yourself, hey, good work. And how did I build on that? It was through having a spiritual awakening and really having my mind shattered in a sense, and my the veil of my illusions being lifted in moments, and having experiences that were so synchronized and so divine, and knowing that there is more to this reality than I can even begin to comprehend. So at the same time as I was going on the spiritual route and spiritual journey, I was still engaging in fitness and weightlifting, and because it made me feel good. It made me feel good about myself. And I'd say in the moments where I was feeling deeply lost within my spiritual exploration and not knowing who I was and feeling purposeless and hopeless, it was always fitness that I was able to rely on to keep me going. If I was having a shitty day or a shitty week or a shitty month, well, the one thing that I kept doing for myself was going to the gym, and it gave me a sense of purpose and it gave me a sense of meaning. Now, that's what it can be for you. Is that not what a spiritual practice is? How many people live their life and they're in such despair, but at the end of the day, they have their connection with God and they come back and they pray and they feel that just for a moment, that sense of purpose and that sense of worthiness, right? That makes fitness in itself, if you're in that type of situation, that makes fitness a deeply spiritual practice, even if you don't realize it, right? So just right there. And I know there's a lot of people who are in that mindset, as I've been in it. I've been in it. And even now, if I'm having a tough day or whatever it may be, like if I really need to, I can go to the gym and I can like have a demon battle in the gym. You know what I mean? Like you can go to war in there. You can go to war in there with the darkest parts of yourself. Now, I think the ways in which you go to war and your ability to do so, and you can almost show up for yourself on a deeper level the deeper you take the fitness practice and the more commitment you have to it. Because I'm in the weight room 6 days a week, right? And I'm in the 1,000 pound club now between my deadlift, squat, bench, right? So I'm stronger than I've ever been. I do pretty advanced lifts. I take it very seriously. I'm very committed. So when I really need it as a deeply rooted spiritual practice, and to put my headphones on and just feel and grind and alchemize darkness into light, I know exactly what I need to do when I'm in there. I trust myself and I flow. In the same way that a lot of people have intuitive spiritual practices excuse me, my goal for anybody listening to this, and my goal for anybody that I would work with in a fitness setting, is to get them to be able to work out on an intuitive level. You don't always need a fitness program. The one of the main, I'd say, issues with fitness coaching and personal training model is they make you reliable on the trainer, like dependent on the trainer, not reliable. They make you dependent upon the trainer for your success. And if you were to take the trainer out of the equation who designed your program and did this and did that, right? You have no adaptability outside of what the trainer has taught you. Now, my goal, and this should be the goal of every fitness professional, and unfortunately it's not, because it's a model that's built on not built on leveling up the individual's awareness, but it's on solving. It's very similar to the medical system, right? Um, Diagnosing and let me give you the solution to the problem, but I'm not going to teach you anything of what caused the root. Maybe I'll teach you a little bit about the roots of the problem, but I'm not going to, after we might solve this or reach your base goal, well, I'm not going to, how do you expand on that? Not every fitness professional is interested in that, unfortunately. I want to get people to be working out on an intuitive level to where they have a vast repertoire of knowledge on how to grow, on how to build themselves, on how to achieve variations of goals, be adaptable. If they feel a certain pain or nag or whatever it may be, that they know what to do, right? It's about building a sense of sovereignty and autonomy within the gym. So where you are your own personal trainer and you are your own expert because it's your body. It's your body, right? If you're working with a personal trainer and they're not hoping that one day you graduate from their services, I mean, obviously they're going to always be happy to help. I would be the same way. It's like you have questions, you got this, you got that. Like, you shouldn't work with somebody for 20 years. You don't need to. Like, I mean, if they're committed to a long-term vision with you, sure, and they're going to be there for every step of the journey. But for a lot of fitness professionals, it's about just designing a program, showing up and making a paycheck. They don't think about the clients for more than, I don't know, an hour outside of the initial like time within the gym, right? So it's, you can give yourself the same knowledge and understanding of your body and what types of exercises you can do and what you're capable of just by simply being intuitive and understanding and listening and opening yourself up. That's my goal with anybody I would be working with, is to empower them to take fitness into their own hands and make it a practice of devotion, right? So, I think there is a lot of fit people and people who use the gym as a way, in the same sense where you can show up and you can have a demon battle. There is a way that you can use fitness as a tool of escape from looking at your shadows and doing some of the inner work. I've been guilty of that in the past too, and I think maybe that was why it was one of my early spiritual practices, because I didn't want to fully look at myself and I could just kind of build myself up and and just go to the gym and run from my problems. And I was building something there. I'm just going to ignore X, Y, and Z over here. That's a very real phenomenon. And I think in the same sense, you do have a lot of spiritual people who avoid the body and they avoid grounding. You know, it's kind of what we were talking about with the ascending without grounding, right? There's a big phenomenon of people disconnecting spirituality from their body. The many of the traditional spiritual texts and like Buddhism and all these, there's a lot of evidence that to support where there's a lot of these original teachers there, they'd say you can't be spiritual if you're not in shape. It's not possible. It's not possible. And when I first started in oh, spiritual studies, I don't really know how to When I first started exploring these topics and I heard that many years ago, and I didn't really believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I thought that was very judgmental. I thought it was quite harsh. But the further I go into my fitness journey and really prioritizing my health and taking radical control of my body and my goals, I am starting to understand there is a level of truth to that. Now, obviously, everybody is spiritual, and you can have a deep spiritual practice while being out of shape and having this and having that. But there's a level of truth to that. There is only a certain level of spirituality that you can attain while not having a connection to your body or being out of shape. And Ryan Zem talked about this in the podcast him and I recently did, you know, and I think it is a harsh reality to hear that. And I don't say it as a judgment. You know, if somebody's listening to this and they're not in very good shape, but they have a deeply rooted connection with spirit, I think that connection with your spirit is very real. But if that connection is as strong as it is now and you're not in shape, just imagine how much more powerful it will be if you do take control of your health and your wellness and your physical body. Like it'll increase tenfold. And I say that again, it's supported through the text of a lot of ancient traditions, but I say that from my own lived experience too, because the further I go with my fitness, the further I go at my spirituality, and the further I go at my spirituality, the further I go at my fitness. They have gone hand in hand in terms of how I continue to evolve into this journey. So don't think I say that to be judgmental. I say it because there's a level of truth to reaching different levels of spiritual enlightenment and understanding by grounding into the body and having a healthy body and not being plagued by injuries or disease or comorbidities or obesity, whatever it may be, right? If it is a struggle each and every day with your physical body, that is going to be your priority. Your body's in survival mode, fighting against itself. So if you can give yourself the optimal conditions within your own body, you're going to be able to, again, ascend to a different level if you want to put it in those terms. I feel like I almost lack the proper terminology to like it's just difficult to put that into the right context, but I know you guys are understanding what I'm talking about. So really I think when we're looking at almost the archetypal polarity of iron and ether, with iron, it's the matter, it's the discipline, it's resistance, the form, being, in the gym, your willpower. And when we're looking at ether, it is consciousness, it's breath, it's meaning, it's presence, it's devotion, right? And so it's an integration process because ultimately, discipline in a physical standpoint, discipline with the gym, it translates to discipline in other areas of life, and discipline to your spiritual practices, discipline to a meditation practice, discipline to learning, right? And then let's say your breath or your presence, your awareness in a spiritual practice that will translate into the gym, into physical practices, right? So it really goes hand in hand. That's what I'm trying to really hammer home here. And with iron, it's like I really view there. I call it the Church of Iron, just as a joke. I've called it that for years. The gym, I call it the Church of Iron, but I view it as truth. It is sacred to me. It is one of the most sacred things I do. And that's why if someone wants to work out with me, for example, I view that as a very serious thing. Like I'm not just going to do that for anybody, right? I just started taking my brother Tony into the gym. Anthony, he's coming in with me, and he's been on the podcast many times. You guys know him. And I said, I'm like, are you sure? He's like, you want to do this? All right. All right. You say so. You're gonna learn. You're gonna learn. Look at. You're gonna learn the way I do it, and it's gonna be intense. There's not gonna be any shortcuts. Now it'll be fun. I'm not gonna lie. I have fun with whoever I lift with and work out with. But what I'm doing is it's a very sacred thing to me, and I take it very seriously. And I view it in the highest regard of my own spiritual practices. Right? It's probably more important than my meditation. If I had to choose one to skip, I'd skip the meditation 10 times out of 10. And it's not because the meditation is not important, but it's because I know a day without the gym versus a day without my meditation. I can live without the meditation and I can live without the gym, but the gym has more, not just physical benefits, but spiritual and mental benefits for me. Right? I think the resistance and the fight that you go in, it's really a great teacher. The struggle is a great teacher. I think me going in and being disciplined and learning how to be disciplined and to continue to show up and to not skip leg day and like it's a form of devotion. I really like, and it's interesting because even in the gym, you can take a competition mindset like it's you versus the weights. One of the spiritual practices I've started, and it's gonna sound, I've never spoken about this, and so I don't know how this is gonna sound. You might hear this and be like, Evan is fucking like just nuts. He's out there. And that's cool if you think that. I don't really care. But I really feel a sense of oneness with the weights. And here's why. Because when I'm gonna go for a heavy deadlift, a deadlift PR, all right, I walk up to the bar, and a lot of times, if when I view it in the sense like, oh, I need to pick up this freaking bar and it's gonna suck, and I'm working against the weight, I've started imagining as if I am being supported by that weight and I am like becoming in union with that weight. If that makes it's hard to explain, but you almost, instead of working against it, you're working with it. Like we are moving up. Like I am, this bar is coming off the floor. Like this is my bar. This bar is me and it is coming up. Right. And when you kind of lose the competition against the weights and the resistance itself, it really harmonizes and synchronizes the process. And it actually, for me, it's made me able to do more and kind of push my boundaries in the capacity that I thought I had. And it's a very interesting process. And I will call in, like, I have a deep connection. I don't talk about my own personal connection to spirit guides or the ancestors or, some of these spiritual forces that we all have and connections we have. I don't talk about those very much. Those are very personal to me. I don't think they're all that important for me to articulate about, which is why I don't really talk about it, but I'll call in the support. Like I'll call in spiritual support to help me like lift weight. And some people, it's almost like it's like the equivalent of some dude like praying for a new car almost. Like, really? You're praying to God for a new car? Like, really? You're calling in your ancestors and spirit guides to help you lift some weight? Like, you can get the support, man. I'm telling you, it is a deeply spiritual practice and you feel it. So I start, if you're going into the gym and you already have a spiritual practice, start integrating some of those things that you're doing on maybe the meditation cushion when you're lifting weights. I'm telling you, it transforms how you work out. It really does when you can start to connect and integrate some of these concepts with one another. And I'm starting to realize as I'm building strength, it's not because I want to dominate life and become dominant, but I'm increasing my capacity and I'm increasing my ability and I'm becoming a better human being. Right? I think when we take that mindset, like I still want to like rip heavy deadlifts and pick up, like, my goal for deadlifts by the end of 2026 is 500 pounds. My one rep max that I've ever gotten is 435. Um, So we're getting there. We're getting there. You know, we fractured a few ribs along the way. I have a powerlifting belt, and it's a super great. It's a really good belt. Titan weight belts. Look them up. They ought to give me a sponsorship. And you get a lifetime warranty on the belt, which is sweet. And it's a sick belt. I've had it for 7 or 8 years now. Taking that thing everywhere. Been all over the country. That weight belt has been all over the country. Gyms all across the country. But anyways, Titan weight belt. And I fractured my ribs with it a couple times. It's such a big, clunky weight belt. And when I was really early on lifting, I wasn't as grounded in my body. So I just slap it on and then go lift the weights. Well, 1 or 2 times I had it too high up and it fractured one of my, this happened twice, 2 different instances. It fractured and just like popped a rib as I was doing the deadlift. Sucks. And honestly, when you look at my, if you're to look at my ribs here, one side of them kind of comes out more a little bit. And if you were to go look at my Instagram or TikTok, I've put up some like physique stuff recently. You can kind of see it. I mean, I notice it because it's my body. I don't know if it's that noticeable, but I notice it. Which it's just interesting. Such a capacity. I've had so many injuries over the years. But injuries are beautiful in a sense too, because you know, anytime you're trying to grow and you're trying to improve, you're going to have setbacks, and injuries are a part of the game. I really think the way I look at fitness is very similar to Paul Chet, and he views the pain doctor, right? And I really resonate with that concept because every time I've had an injury or a setback, I've always viewed it as a learning lesson. Like I had to get my appendix removed. Um, and it was funny because they said no lifting more than 20 pounds for at least 2 weeks. And when they said it, in my head, I said, there's no way that's going to happen. Like, there's no way. I feel like shit right now. And my abdomen is so sore, and I got these incisions. And I'm going to be careful, but there is absolutely no way that's going to be the reality based on what people have told me about the recovery. Sure enough, within, I think it was 5 days, I was back in the weight room. And, I did a little bit of benching and I did some light movements but I mean, just the barbell alone weighs 45 pounds, right? So you're already doubling the weight there. I only went up to 135, which if you're in the weightlifting community, that's not that much. That's warm up. Maybe if you're listening to this and you don't weightlift, you're like, oh my God, 135 pounds. Like that's lightweight, baby. That's nothing. Ain't nothing but a peanut, as Ronnie Coleman says. So I was gonna, but the reason I did that is not because I'm defiant and I didn't want to listen to the doctors. It's because I'm my own doctor. It's the same thing in terms of fitness, and I want you to be autonomous over your fitness and your personal goals. It's because I am my own doctor. I know my body better than anybody else. So when I know I'm capable of going back into the gym, I have this deep connection with myself about my movement patterns, about what I can do based on what these incisions are here. I'm gonna do what I know I'm able to do because movement is medicine. I don't care what anybody says, movement is medicine. I think that's really the whole concept of physical therapy. Right? If you can view movement as medicine, you're going to have a deeply rooted spiritual practice within physicality. Listen to your body. That's the point of this episode. That's the point of Iron and Ether. And I think for me, weightlifting has been a great medicine for my soul, not just for my physical body, not just because I'm putting on muscle and people are telling me that I look beefy and I look ripped and this and that. I'm getting a lot of compliments on it lately, and it feels good. But that's not the point of it. It's because the movement is medicine, and because I'm viewing it as medicine, and I'm actually like I knew that on an intellectual level for a long time, but because I'm integrating it as medicine and a medicine for the soul, it makes me feel more magnetic on an internal level and radiant and confident and showing up for myself. And there, when I'm doing that, I'm more creative. I'm creating more things. I'm more abundant. I'm more happy. I'm more joyful. Right? It hits all areas of life. I feel more connected spiritually. I'm able to go deeper in my meditations. I'm able to trust myself to traverse unknowns, both inward and outward. Movement is medicine. Movement is medicine. And I think realistically, especially if you do have like a meditation practice, for example, um, you're able to train your nervous system and to handle capacity and heavy loads, if you will, right? You can stay present through the movement, right? Now, with a heavy deadlift, I'm telling like you have to be fully in the moment. You cannot be elsewhere. If I'm thinking or I'm fearful or I feel one certain way, then I am not going to be able to pick up the weight. I'm not. I'm not like, and that's how I've injured myself before because I'm thinking about other things or I'm doing other, like, I'm too worried about this, worried about that. Right. And when I say I have like a demon battle in the gym, it's because I let all that shit go. And maybe the emotions feel a little heavy and they're present, but I'm lifting through them and I'm powering through them and I'm expressing them through movement. So that's why movement is medicine. And with I would say that's sort of the iron concept. If we're looking at iron and ether, with ether, it's more of that like invisible force, if you will. It's breath, it's awareness, it's intention, right? If we were to do a fitness consultation, I mean, we're going to focus on both of these aspects, but as important as your fitness goals are your intentions. A goal is much different than an intention. Why are you doing this? Not just because you want to lose 50 pounds. So that's a goal. Why are you doing that? What's the point? Why do you work out? Okay, movement is medicine. Why is it medicine? How is it medicine for you? Right? You take it on a deeper level. And I think sometimes in fitness industry, it's very surface level with its goals and with its, they might call them intentions, but maybe your fitness intention is you're getting older and you want to be in shape so you can like be on the ground playing with your grandkids. Like that's beautiful. That's a beautiful intention. Like let's work towards that. Let's ensure that is reality. Let's create the circumstances to where there is no option but you doing that. Right. And really, if you're present and you're aware, you're able to cultivate greater, I would say, energy, greater life force energy. You're able to push your boundaries internally, prove yourself wrong in a lot of ways. I think training without presence and training without intention is really just empty motion. Sure, you're moving your body mechanically, but we're moving beyond the mechanical 3D idea of what it means to be a human being. And through fitness, that's what it's about. That's what iron and ether is about. Man, I'm glad I'm doing this podcast because I haven't really expressed this in any other format yet. Y'all are the first to hear this. You're the first to understand and unpack this. And this is how I'll explain it as I'm moving forward with people in person, certainly. But you kind of have to flesh these ideas out in real time. And I'm grateful to have a podcast where I can go on and just talk about it. Because not everybody has a platform to really, like, I have these ideas, but to really flesh them out and speak them and then feel them. And then, like, oh, yeah, I've lived that. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're doing. You know, there's a difference between doing your exercises and really being present with them and then just kind of going through the motions and inhabiting the reps and making it a mechanical process and checking it off on your little fitness log. There's a big difference. We need to escape the mechanization of the human body and the human mind and the human spirit. I mean, if you listen to any of my podcasts with James Tunney, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And we're moving into a more digital, mechanized age. And it's very important to reclaim your own sovereignty. When we have a union of iron and ether, body and spirit, the body becomes conscious and the spirit becomes grounded. That's what it's about. The body becomes conscious, the spirit becomes grounded. And whether it's through a fitness practice or a spiritual practice, those are really the goal of each in a lot of ways. It's why they serve as a perfect yin and yang. iron, ether. I would say true strength is the embodiment of will and awareness. It is not woo fitness or mindfulness, cardio, or, it's not these like abstract ideas. It is integration of the body and spirit. So, again, I kind of want to touch on how do we integrate spirit into fitness on a practical level. And I'm going to give you guys some tips on how you can do that, right? I mean, we would talk about this type of stuff in a consultation, certainly, and give you more personalized suggestions based on your own situation and plans and your own practices, and I would want to incorporate the practices you already do. But just some things you can keep in mind is just setting intentions before movements. Every time you walk into the gym, have an intention. Don't have a goal, have an intention. Set an intention for yourself. How you're going to show up for yourself, how you're going to feel, why you're doing this, right? Setting that intention, make it an internal focus, your presence, stability. Maybe it's a sense of courage. Maybe you're showing up to give your sense of self-respect, right? Set an intention for yourself. That's a way that you can uh, make the body conscious and the spirit grounded, both simultaneously. And I think obviously the breath is important as well. Consciously breathe. Something I was teaching Tony in the gym yesterday when we were doing squats was about the breath. And on the coming down in the squat, just noticing the inhalation, coming up the exhalation, right? And it's very easy to like go through a heavy workout and almost not breathe. Like make it your intention to notice your breath pattern as you're working out. On a squat, very easy one to notice, right? If you're breathing. If you're breathing. Uh, Inhalation, exhalation, and track almost coordinate the workout with your breath and vice versa. A very simple, easy way to embody and ground a more sacred life force, spiritual ether concept in breathing and into a physical practice. Right. And that goes with not just weightlifting. I mean, any movement practice. Yoga, huge on the breath. Yoga might be the most in terms of a physical practice embodiment of spiritual concepts. Yoga is by far the most integrated, right? But if you have strength training goals and you have other goals, and you're not gonna. I mean, you might get a little jacked doing yoga. Don't get me wrong. Those yoga people they're in shape. Don't get me wrong. Um, but it's not, obviously it's not the same as like resistance training. It's much different. And I'm actually going to take a yoga class here in town soon. I'm very excited. I just learned about it. I didn't even know we had yoga in this town. It's how small of a town I live in. Um, so, but anyways, that's kind of besides the point. And I do think having presence when you're under resistance or you're lifting, it's very important. I think it can reveal like the resistance can reveal a lot of our unconscious patterns, whether it is escapism or aggression or dissociation, right? Try and be present. You don't need your anger to fuel your workout. Believe it or not, you don't need your anger to be fuel your workout. A lot of people will tap into one specific emotion for every workout. Let me get really, really angry. And I've tried that. It might work once in a while, but it's not always necessary. Try unionization of your body and spirit instead of anger. Let me know how that works out. Um, I think the weights and the iron can really reveal where you abandon yourself, and the spirit in turn is then trained by staying present, by choosing to stay present with your body. And maybe anger is present and you can express it. Maybe sadness is present and you can express it. I've had grief fueled workouts. I've had angry fueled workouts. And the reason they were positive in that regard is because I was present with those things. So, and again, this is about integration beyond the gym. Your strength that you cultivate in the gym is going to be expressed practically in the form of boundaries and trust for yourself and consistency and discipline in the other areas of your life. And it's going to give you a sense of grounded confidence, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like it's going to give you a sense of confidence and magnetism that because you're showing up and doing good things for yourself, well, you should feel good about yourself. I think it's a beautiful thing, right? The gym really is a microcosm for life in a lot of ways, which is why I view it as sacred as I do. Uh, you don't train necessarily, you don't have to train to look strong or be, or look good. You train to live a coherent and grounded, disciplined life. Because what better way to prove to yourself in a physical aspect that you're showing up than to going in and literally sculpting your body like you're Michelangelo? Literally, it's a sculpt. That's the part of aesthetic training that I really resonate with. The body is art. The body is beautiful, right? And this is where there's certain aspects that the body positivity movement gets right, in that the body is a beautiful work of art. However, it's going to reach its peak beauty through the training that you put into it, right? It's like a piece of artwork. If there's no you got a blank canvas and you just have the canvas, right? Let's say the body is the canvas and you put no work into it. There's certain artist communities that might view that still as art. If you just put one little line or you surface level paint, some scribbles, and you have this shallow concept of what the canvas has become. But if you really lock in on it and you paint away and you sculpt something beyond even what your imagination can begin to comprehend, you create a masterpiece. That's what I resonate with aesthetic training. And that's why, in many aspects, I do train for aesthetics. It started as ego, but now it's because I have an artistic lens on the human body. I want to look like I belong on Mount Olympus, that I should have a statue made for me. And maybe that sounds like ego, but for me, it is an artistic expression of my own canvas. And if you can take that mindset into your training, you're going to see results. I promise you. Now, I do think I've kind of already highlighted what iron and ether is not. I mean, it's not, uh, it's when I talk about aesthetic training, I want to be clear, it's not like bodybuilding worship necessarily. Like a lot of people do ask nowadays. I mean, I appreciate in the fitness community that a lot more people are open about steroid usage and enhancements. And if someone were to ask me if they should use those, I wouldn't tell them no. I think that it's all dependent on what your goals are. I think it's all dependent on what it is that you're actually doing. Most people probably don't need them. The vast majority of people certainly don't need them, actually. I think there's an argument to be made for men with therapeutic testosterone. Does the average 20-year-old male's testosterone levels today are the same as the average male who was 60 years old in the 1970s. Right. So there's an argument to be made that like across the board, therapeutic testosterone would be good for males. But that's not really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about enhancements. I'm talking about like, I'm not even going to name them off. I don't know if YouTube has, I've never really dabbled into this subject. So I'm not going to name off specific steroids or whatever, because maybe it would get taken down. I don't really know how fitness community works in terms of YouTube. But I would argue most people don't need them. But the reason I say I wouldn't say no is because I don't know what your goals are. I don't know what your vision is. But I don't think you need to go and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger to craft that beautiful canvas, right? I want people to have the highest version of confidence and beauty within their own bodies while they're creating and feeling magnetic. If you feel good, you're going to look good. That's what I mean by crafting the canvas. If you look good, you're going to feel good, right? And you can't lie to yourself about that. Like, do you actually feel good? Like, you might be in a good mood, but do you feel good within your body? Right? And I think sometimes body positivity movements, they're not answering the question truthfully on if they feel good about themselves. So every time I've kind of just gone through the motions and not and never let myself go necessarily, but I wasn't up to my standard. I didn't feel good about myself. I felt like shit. Like I know what my potential is, and I'm not anywhere near it right now because considering I've been as dedicated as I have been, especially probably say the last 2 years, especially the last 5 or 6 months. Um, I feel really good about myself. Obviously, there's levels I'd like to reach that I'm not at yet, but I'm on the path and I know that I'm going to reach them. So if you feel good, you're going to look good. And ultimately, with iron and ether, I don't want it to be spiritual bypassing. I want you to be grounded, present, and doing the spiritual work outside of the gym as well, not making the Church of Iron your one place of worship. Life is to be worshiped, you know? Um, and so this is not a passive process in either fitness or spirituality. It's a deep, embodied, honest, devotional practice, commitment to both, right? So I think it's really if people are tired of disembodied spirituality and they're looking to ground more into who they are, or they're more tired of empty strength and they're looking for something deeper within their fitness practice, this is what iron and ether is for. And I don't say that as you need to go and book. I'm saying you need to take the concept of iron and ether and make it your own because it is not a brand. It is a mentality. And I think that's why I created it. I haven't seen somebody articulate that mentality and try to encapsulate it. Right. And sure, you can go buy an iron and ether shirt if it helps you like embody that mentality. But if this podcast alone gets you thinking about these concepts, then the creation of iron and ether was well worth it. I don't need to make $1 off of it. This is me sharing how I work out and how I ground my spiritual practice through fitness and vice versa, bring a level of consciousness and spirituality into my fitness practice. This is really what I'm doing. So, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the vision moving forward, Iron and Ether itself, I will have programs available. You can get one-on-one consultations with me now. I'll certainly be putting out more writings and teachings and ideas. And, I plan to have a few more fitness people who are in alignment with this on the podcast and talk about and introduce this to fitness circles. Um, so I guess the listeners, look for those training programs if you're interested in one specific based program. I'll have an aesthetic based program, a strength based program. Um, there'll be multiple programs. I'm in the works for a few of them right now. And my goal before I release a fitness program, I'm going to have the certification done. I just need to take the tests up. It's in a few weeks. And I've been studying, doing the work, and I feel very confident, so I like to at least do the consultation now and start that process. And anyone who's listening is local and wants to work with me one-on-one and do a consultation, but then have extended services and training, regular like training sessions, something we can certainly do. Just send me a message. I haven't put any rates or anything like that for training services. And that could be available as well online. It's a little bit more tricky to do a virtual personal training session. I mean, what are you going to do? Walk around with me on Zoom in the gym? Like it's a little weird, bro. I mean, you could do it, I guess. We could try it, but it's a little different. And if you're just going to be doing home-based workouts too, we can adapt it to that. So just let me know if you want to step into that space. The space has been created. Um, and I really am just excited to see Like, send me your testimonials or send me your ideas on how you incorporate spirit into fitness. That's something I really want to have more discussions on and hear about and learn about, because it's an ever expanding process, as spirit is for me. It's infinite, right? So how we integrate it into fitness, it's infinite. That answer is always going to be changing, but this is the core framework. This is the core framework. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I created Iron and Ether, and it's just to get this out there and to get people thinking about these concepts, right? You know, the body is not an obstacle to awakening. It really is the doorway. And hopefully, after listening to this, you feel more confident in stepping through that doorway. You know, the iron, I would say, sharpens the ether, and the ether animates and gives life to iron. You know, train your body as if the soul lives there, because it does. It's what it's about. It's about not just taking care of the body, it's about feeding and nourishing the soul. So that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I feel excited about this, and why I'm excited for my own fitness practices as well. Like, honestly, go follow me on social media. I'm putting up a lot of fitness stuff, and I feel really good about the work I've been putting in fitness wise. And I'm obviously, if you're listening to a podcast, you can't see any of the results or you can't see any of the training, but I feel really good about it and I'm proud of it. So and there's been a few people who have said, "Hey, you're doing great work," and it feels very validating to get that, actually. So thank you to anybody who's kind of noticed and been like, "Hey, you're making some gains, bro. Like, nice." Um, so I appreciate everybody. But that's pretty much going to wrap up this episode. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe. We got many more great podcasts coming your way in 2026. It's a beautiful year to just ride your confidence, new momentum, new beginnings. Year of the fire horse, as Latau told me, and it is a numerology 1 year, new beginnings. Take that step forward like a baby bird leaving the nest for the first time. Um, and that's always exciting. It's always exciting, starting a new cycle, a new journey. But that's going to wrap up this episode. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.